And then Jameer's parents, yo, I hated them so much. Like it's one of those things where it's like I hate to say that it's not the first time that I've heard of something like that, but at the same time, I hated that for him. Like, and if you're watching this, we're super deep into spoiler territory, right? And Jameer is the guy from the church who he's gay, and his parents know about it, and to an attempt to ungayify him, they take off the doors in his bedroom to his bedroom. They take all the mirrors out of the house. He's not allowed to have over any company. He is not even allowed to have a cell phone that has internet. He's not allowed to use the computer unless he is in the family room. Has every minute of every day tracked to the point where he's so rebellious. So rebellious. He has to lie to do literally anything. And it's just that just hurt my heart so much, because again, I knew kids, not know presently, but I knew kids, in middle school, high school, who had that level of strictness in their household, and I was just like, how? Why?
Yeah.
Like, that's so. I feel like low key, we need to write a book about toxic parenting, because that was it was so frustrating to read. I was frustrated for him. So,
and this isn't overt in the book. It's not overtly stated. It's alluded to, but in my mind, in that church, Pastor Newsom will change slightly and eventually step down.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I envision it. I would envision Jameer's parents leaving that church because Pastor Newsom has changed. Like even his subtle change to allow children who are part of the LGBTQ community to exist in the church without harassment would be enough to push Jameer's parents out of that church. That's the level of parent he deals with.
Yeah. So I think for those of you who are watching this, I did have an interview before this with Lamar. It'll be in Melanin Ink, which will be up hopefully by the time you watch this, and it'll be live. Hopefully, if not, it's coming. And in it, I think we talked briefly about Jameer. But do you think that he would still have a relationship with his parents in the once he graduates?
I think it would be on them. Mm-hmm. I think once Jameer's out of that house, if his parents are still the hardcore, we're not going to accept you, I would not be surprised if Jameer just finds a family of his choosing, which would ultimately probably be better for him. Okay. It'd be sad that he would lose that connection to his biological parents, but I don't see that being sustainable once he's not under their thumb.
Yeah. Do you think he'll stay friends with Kiera and Dell and everybody else, or do you think that's like a friendship that's purely high school, they're going to just drift away? Because I know Dell and Kiera aren't really friends to begin with.
Oh, I think, honestly, I can see it drifting away. And it's not because of any hard feelings. I just feel like that's a group of people who will probably go their separate ways for various reasons. Mm-hmm. And it's just been my experience in life that you have few friends that maintain that level of friendship. And not to say it doesn't happen, because I have high school friends who went to different places all over the country. We still play Call of Duty together and stuff like that.
But, I love it. I love to hear it.
Yeah, but I don't think they were the level. Maybe Jameer and Kiera, because they grew up together. But I don't see Dell, because their relationship was so dependent on that moment in time.
I get that. And we are going to talk about your other books, but the other thing that I really wanted to give you kudos for was I really like, and it's such a small thing, right? How at the end, because the entire time in the book, Jameer has a boyfriend, right? That he's sneaking off to go see, privately. I love how at the end Dell is talking to him again, because Jameer is finally recovering from his isolation period punishment from his parents, right? And he's just like, yeah, we broke up. And then Dell's like, oh man, what happened? And he's just like, nah, I broke up with him. It just wasn't gonna work. I got bored, move on, And I like that subtle touch, because I feel like a lot of times people, I'll say, romanticize the LGBTQ community in the sense of, they're with one person forever. And it's just like, nah, they date, they move on, they break up for silly reasons. They're human, right? And I like that you didn't go the route of stereotypically romanticizing it in a way that's just not accurate. And I just thought it was a really nice touch, especially since the whole book was Dell being hung up on this one girl for 12 years,
Yeah, I really wanted a moment for Jameer where he says, where you can see he's having healthy relationships in spite of what's going on at his house. And part of having healthy relationships is when it's not working anymore, we can go our separate ways.
Yeah.
Maybe we're friends, maybe we don't talk anymore, but no hard feelings. And I felt like that was a moment where he expressed that to Dell. And when they go to prom, he obviously has his eyes on someone else who's interested in him. So Jameer's doing okay.
He's moving on. He's good.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. So I feel like we've talked about this book for like the last half hour, and I just want you to know I had a whole list of questions, of which I've asked you like 2 off of this list. But that being said, I do, like I said, I do want to talk about your other books, but I also want to talk about your writing process a little bit because earlier in the conversation you mentioned that you went back and you got your MFA from Old Dominion University, and I wanted to know kind of what was your decision to do that, because on the Written in Melanin channel, a lot of our watchers are either readers or they're writers themselves, and one of the questions that comes up, like, I'm not gonna say a lot, but kind of frequently is, you know, the difference between being self-taught versus going to go get a formal education in writing to, you know, be successful. So since you have an MFA, what's your take on it?
Well, I should speak to my motivation for going to the MFA first, because my situation's probably going to be fairly unique compared to the average person considering it. Mm-hmm. When I went to my MFA program, I'd already sold 2 novels. Mm-hmm. Fake ID had already come out by the time I started my program, and in my second semester, my second novel, Endangered, had come out. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I made the decision to go back, it had to do with a couple of things involving wanting to have a little bit more in the toolbox. If I wanted to pursue teaching writing at the college level, like, you need to have a degree if you're going to teach writers. And I also was wondering if there were skills I could pick up that I didn't already have to improve my professional writing. So I'm already published. And I should say this too. My wife worked at the university, so I could take classes for free or cheap. I think I paid something, but it wasn't. Wasn't like, yeah. And so it just became a thing where I wanted to try to increase my skill and give myself a better opportunity if I wanted to try to join an MFA program as a professor. So that was my motivation. And so other people may be going into their programs without having published novels already. And I think the thing is, you just should consider what you want out of it. Know that if you're seeking to publish immediately, going to school is going to slow that process down because you're going to have to focus on your schoolwork. Mm-hmm. And you don't need an MFA to sell a novel. Obviously, I didn't have one when I sold my first 2. However, I have found that when I did my MFA program, it made me a much stronger and deliberate reader. Mm-hmm. Because prior to that, I would pretty much just read the things I knew I was going to like. And so, like, I mean, I grew up a big Stephen King guy, so I'm always going to read a Stephen King book when it comes out, that sort of thing. After my program, I'm seeking out a wider range of material because I know I can learn from it. I'd learn those skills in my program. And obviously, you'll be writing on deadlines often, so you'll hone the skill of meeting those deadlines. And provided that you have an encouraging cohort, you're going to get good feedback. I've heard some nightmare stories about these super competitive programs where people rip each other apart and sort of jockeying for position as the best in the program. My experience wasn't like that. So I could recommend ODU's program, and now I also am part of the faculty at Spalding University in Kentucky, and I would not hesitate to recommend that program if you were interested.
Okay, so if you're watching this, you know, those are 2 recommendations from somebody who's actually knows what they're talking about. So don't trust me because I ain't gone. So that's what you said. But that being said, you know, you said that you had sold 2 books before you got your MFA, and then clearly after you've got more than the 5 though.
I've published 7 novels, and my 8th will be out next year, which is the 3rd book in my middle grade series.
Okay. Ooh, we're gonna talk about that too. All right. Awesome. Okay. But that being said, like, did you ever consider going another route other than traditional publishing? Because all of your books are traditionally published.
Well, actually, I self-published before my young adult book came out. I used to write under my initials, Lamar Giles. Okay. And so I published several short stories in the early 2000s, and I self-published a horror novella and a collection of suspense stories. The novella is called Live Again. The suspense collection is called The Shadows Gallery.
I'm right
And yeah, and I'm not saying that like seek these things out, because I'm sure if I went back and read them now, I would cringe.
I'm still gonna read it.
Yeah. I mean, it's there. It's there. What can I say?
Okay.
I was trying to learn everything about publishing, and so I wanted to know how the self-publishing side worked. I wanted to know how traditional worked. Self-publishing was a good experience. Like, I learned a lot about having to like design covers and get editors, and I found that traditional publishing served my needs more right now. But I wouldn't rule out self-publishing things I didn't necessarily want to give up control to a traditional publisher for.
Okay. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I find that authors sometimes can go, they're either, and this is such a weird analogy, but forgive me, I am my mother's daughter. I find that it's a lot like liver. Sometimes authors are like, either they love it or they hate it, and they're like, no, I could never do anything but traditional publishing. That's all I could ever think about. Or like, I would never in a million years consider traditional publishing. That's the route that I take, only because written in Melanin, I just wanted to do that for myself. I was just like, I think this is the route that I want to take. But I always like
I'll speak to that a little more then, because here's the thing about it too. I mean, when I was self-publishing, this was like 2009, 2010. I mean, and to some extent, it's still a case where, particularly for writers of color, gatekeepers wouldn't always let us into traditional publishing. Like there would be, the way our work is judged wouldn't even be about quality sometimes. It would be like, hey, we already have a Black writer at this publishing house, so we can't bring you on because we got one already. And so in that climate, I'm a big advocate for self-publishing, because if you sit around and waited for traditional publishing to do right, you may never get your books out there. And there's so many success stories from back then of people who started self-publishing and maybe still do. I haven't kept up with it that much because traditional publishing wouldn't give them the time of day, and self-publishing worked out better for them,
Yeah. And I'm glad that you say that, because it's one of those things that I feel like it's kind of like a commonly accepted rumor. Like, there are very few people willing to put it into words and say exactly what you just said, that there, at one point, like, there were gatekeepers, and like, yes, it's better now. Of all the things that happened in 2020, I would have to say publishing paid me is probably one of the better things to have happened, because it's opened the eyes of a lot of people who make a lot of decisions about a lot of things. It's not perfect, but it's better. And it's better than it was, than I'm assuming it was in the early 2000s or even prior to that, but it doesn't change the fact that the gatekeepers were there and still are there. And like you said, there were occasions where they're like, it has nothing to do with your book or the quality of it, it's just the fact that you're Black and you wrote it. And so when I was writing my book and I was like, okay, I want to do this, I was like, I could definitely try to go the route of traditional publishing. But then so something you have to know about me is just that I am just very rebellious in spirit by nature. And so I was like, I don't want to have to be in a position where I have to ask somebody else to validate my work before it is accepted for anything, especially when I know that, I did what I did. Like, I did the thing, right? And I was like, I didn't want to have to like pass it off to somebody and then risk it being told to no, based purely off of what I look like and not the quality of what I'm writing. You see what I'm saying? So I was just like, I want to do written in Melanin, because it's just like, okay, I'm not going to ask for a key through the door. I'm just going to build my own door. Thanks very much. But that being said, I'm not going to rant about written in Melanin, because this is not about me, and I do that enough on my channel as it is. So that kind of got me off a little bit. But one of the things that I did want to ask you, kind of forgetting that train of thought because it's gone, your writing process, right? I know at the beginning of our conversation you said that you kind of have to figure out and feel out the story when you're writing. So are you a pantser by nature? Are you a planner? Or do you just kind of have a mix? Did going to get your MFA change that at all? So what's that like?
I would say by nature I'm a pantser, which, I mean, I'm assuming people who watch your channel would know what that is, but I'll just give loose explanation. Like, you know, that's just writing and seeing what happens. You're writing by the seat of your pants. Typically, the way I have been since I was a kid, I'll have the incident, and I may have a loose ending in mind, and I figure it out as I go. Like, things come to me that seem cool, they seem like surprises, and I feel like if they surprise me, they'll surprise you if you pick it up and read it later. Being in publishing, more so than the MFA, has changed that a bit, because the place I am in my career, I'm able to sell books that I haven't written yet. But the thing is, when you're doing that, you have to have sort of like a detailed synopsis. So that forces you to think through details and plots, beginning, middle, and end, in a way you wouldn't if you were pantsing traditionally. No. But in order to get the contract and ultimately get paid, and you got to be able to tell the publisher, I do know what's going to happen in this book, and here it is. Yeah. Now, I don't sway from those synopses much, but I have found that once it's time to sit down and write, sometimes things will emerge that go off track of what I told them. And that's perfectly fine. For anyone out there who may go through this eventually, if you haven't already, the publishers know that through the actual construction of the book, details may change. They just want to know that you thought about it enough to try to tell them you got it all together right now.
It's like, take a shot at it, take a stab at it.
Yeah. We need a paragraph. We need at least a paragraph, you know?
Yeah.